Mr. Niels Faber. Niels is Professor Transition towards the Circular Economy at the Hans University of Applied Sciences in Groningen. Is Assistant Professor at the University of Groningen, also here in Leeuwarden, Campus Friesland. For the past 20 years, he has been engaged with research into sustainable development, of which the last 8 years specifically on business models for circular economy, and his research focuses on the organizational aspects of the circular economy and societal and economic changes that are needed to accommodate the circular economy. And together with Jan Jonker, he co-authored the open access book Organizing for Sustainability, which is freely downloadable, and I would also strongly recommend you to do that and have a close look because it's really a wonderful and insightful book. Niels, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Egbert. Thank you very much. I don't get applause that often, so thank you very much also for that. I was thinking about how to build up my keynote in the past days, and I thought, well, I need to provide you with a little bit of background. So I take you not on a statement, but on a journey which I've been going through for the past years. But I start with you explaining the elephant in the room. I think you all know this problem, right? Everybody has been there. Toddlers, babies, that age, it doesn't fit, right? Well, this is exactly my problem. I'm working on the circular economy, and I'm facing this problem. We try to build a circular economy within the confines of the existing economic system. It doesn't fit. We're doing our very best to make this happen. We're counting, this is what economists do as well, we're counting how far we are ahead with that work. And we see a decline in our efforts of becoming circular. Circularity reports show a declining progress of the circular economy building up. So we're not doing a very good job. And this brings me also back to the story that Matthias just shared with you. The circular economy is also provided to us as a way to achieve economic growth, decoupling this from material needs. We now know this is bullshit, right? But we can already, I think, assess that from the basic fabric of what GDP means. The promise is this, right? Decoupling, we grow GDP and we decline everything that has to do with material needs and CO2 emissions, everything. But GDP, in essence, is a measure of consumption of stuff, of substance, of anything that is of material nature. So you count the one thing and then you expect it to decline in the middle thing. That's a bit of a strange thing. So this is my journey, and my journey, I think, translates very nicely into the stream of thoughts that we've built. I'm looking into the circular economy. My particular expertise lies in business models for the circular economy, and we've done a bit of studying over the past 8 years, 9 years, and I'm missing a bit of the books that we are now working on, but okay, they'll come. Where we did an inventory, what's happening in the Netherlands, and we were very disappointed in 2016 and 17. Nothing was really happening in the Netherlands. There were just, out of the 1.5 million companies that were registered at the Chamber of Commerce, we had 80 suspected companies that actually did something that looks a little bit like circularity. So they recycle a bit, or they just separate their waste, those kind of things. I'm not nice to them. They do a bit better job, but this was a bit of a disappointing view. And we thought, well, then we need to start working on a way to help these companies to start doing a better job. We need to help them out to build circular models, circular business models, to build their organizations in a circular stream. So we started with workbooks, and then I think the pinnacle there lies on the right-hand side, the Organizing for Sustainability book that Egbert also referred to. An interesting thing is this was born in education. This was an 8-pager we made for students. 8 pages in which we said, okay, well, if you would like to do something with circular business models, this is how you do it. And then people thought, oh, well, why not write a book? And then we became 200 pages, and that's funny how that goes. My story goes as follows. I'm going to briefly give you a little bit of background on the circular economy, so the principles of the circular economy. A little bit of business modeling, so then you know how I look at building circular economy within organizations. That's the angle that we take. And then a little bit of, okay, what's the transition now that we want to achieve? How do we want to make this circular economy happen? And then I'm going to the culprit to this conference and of my talk today, that is bending and breaking economics, because everything I've been looking into was organizational stuff, how to organize circularity, and I'm now at a point in my research that I say, no, but it's not enough. The economy is there as well, and we need to tackle that too. And I will finish you with some future labor. So I don't have answers to you, but I have questions. And I think the questions are at this stage more important than the answers. Some principles of the circular economy, and I saw that the red is not really a good contrast with the black, at least not on the screen, but these are very nice, so I have a very good picture of that. So one of the things that if you read about the circular economy is that we organize our production systems in closed loops. We try to salvage materials, we build products, we build the chairs, we build the stage, and after a certain amount of time after use, then it comes back into circulation. We break it down, we make sure that all the materials are salvaged and we put them back into circulation. So we need to organize these loops. That's the first thing. The second thing is, but it actually is the most important thing, and a circular economy is an economic system around the principle of value retention. Whatever materials you put into this economic system, and that's where the early debate in the 1970s already started, we want to keep these materials in such condition that we could reuse them and reuse them and reuse them, and etc. until infinity. Well, then if there are physicists in the room, please raise your hands. Physicists, people in physics or in close to, you are very close to, I think. Chemical. Close enough. So then you beat me with Maxwell's law of thermodynamics, the second one that says that's impossible, and you're absolutely right. But what we now do, we put materials in the economic system. At the end of life of a product, you toss it away. And then we have this nice machine called furnace, and we put it in, and then we burn it, and then it's done. We call that thermal recycling, which is an excellent term for that. Thermal recycling. There are different cycles that we can put these materials into, short loops and longer cycles, depending a little bit on the use case in question. This is an important one. If we want to establish a circular economy, it means that we need to collectively do this across organizations. If we want to collaborate, the organizational boundaries oftentimes are more of a hindrance than an enabler to do that. So, and I'm working in universities, and in universities this is even worse. I'm destroying my microphone. That's not I'll fix it later on. In universities even worse, even between departments, collaborations are oftentimes not possible, let alone in business. There are different strategies possible. A few are named here on the slide. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. The starting point is that if we do it like this, we have the opportunity to realize an economic system where on the same materials we have the opportunity to build multiple transactions over their lifetime. So the first life, the virgin materials are put into a product. In the second life, the recycled materials are put into a product, etc., etc. I promise you I also gave you a little bit of a view on business models. So a business model is a way of looking at an organization, looking at how the organization develops or creates value. And we just have the holy trinity of the business model, which is on the slide here. But there are three elements. There is the logic of value creation, which is your promise. We oftentimes call this the value proposition. This is my promise to you. I'm going to give you this product and you can do amazing things with it. The car can get you from A to B, and the boat can do the same thing, but not on the road. Then we have the organizational part, which is the organizational model, which explains how I do that. How do I make sure that this promise I make you actually will be delivered at your doorstep and is there for your convenience to be used. And this means I'm explaining what I do, how I collaborate with others, how I make sure that all my materials are sourced, how I put the whole thing. And the last part is the value creation, part, the revenue model. What do I get out of this? Well, if you go back into the discussion of business models, this was always the financial part, right? The bottom line. These are my expenses, these are my benefits. If we do the calculations, then we meet Simon's efficiency criterion. Hopefully, we have higher benefits than costs, and we make a profit. That was the idea. I always take the perspective of multiple value creation. So what we have seen there is a little bit of a trend throughout the years. Sustainification means we do things more efficiently. This touches on the Jevons paradox that Matthias was addressing. We make the same things, consuming a little bit less energy and needing a little bit fewer materials to make it. Then we had the 1980s. This is already 1980s policy, recycling. In 1985-6, the French motor company Renault already was able to recycle of one car 96% of it. Already in the 1980s. We didn't do that, but the potential was there. It was too costly to do it. So yes, they had it in order technically, but organizationally this was a mess. So this is where the circularization element comes in. We need to think about how to organize for this. How to build the circular economic system, how to build these closed material loops that we actually make products, we are able to take them apart again, and we have the system in place that we, in all sorts of ways of looking at it, viably are able to reuse all the stuff that we have in them. So that's the thing I'm working on. And we're doing a nice job because we wrote this book, and this is one of the pictures that you will find in this book. We developed, this was for the students, we developed a sort of a canvas, a template of 10 building blocks. This is how you piece together a sustainable/circular business model. And you just go through this, it's a journey, and then we put students on this, and they have an 8-week course, and they have a hackathon, and those kind of things. This is where we stood. And then we thought, okay, well, we now have materials in hand, we have tools in hand to make this transition to a circular economy happen. And I've been borrowing a little bit from our colleagues at Drift, at Rotterdam. So what does it mean? It means we have a replacement strategy in place. We are talking about linear economy. I'm sorry, I'm coming from the circular economy realm, so what we have is a linear economy. That's always how we portray this. We have a linear economy in which sustainification is key. We try to do the same thing with less. The decoupling debate is a little bit in that direction, but that takes it really to the extreme. We want to do the same with less. And then we see these things, rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle, recover. This is the narrative that has developed over the 1990s in this realm of eco-efficiency, trying to make products that use fewer materials, that consume less energy. And we need to decompose this, deconstruct this kind of working in the economic system. That is the idea of the transition. And then we have the other one, that's I'm going to skip that laws. I'm not so much into laws. The other one is the rise of the circular economy, in which we start with smart recycling. This is something that I don't even think we see that nowadays. Smart recycling, I have even no idea what that means. It means that we pick and choose, okay, this we will use, this not. And we automate this. That would be my best explanation. But at least we start somewhere, right? So we have waste streams, we look at these waste streams, we do a pilot study on this in the municipality of Groningen, where we do we have this idea to start recycling textiles. So there is a lot of textiles coming in at the municipality collection site, 900 kilotons a year comes in. Now we are able to process roughly 250 kilotons on an annual basis for refurbishing, remanufacturing, what have you, recycling. So that's what we're currently trying to do. And then we have yarn. That's as far as we have gotten yarn. Now we need to get to the next stage. But this is a way of doing smart recycling. So really carefully selecting what can be reused and what can't we reuse. But it needs to build up. This is the end of pipe. I told you in the very beginning, the essence of the circular economy is an economic system of value retention. We want to preserve value of products, components and materials at the highest level possible. So if we start looking at the waste bin, which is here, so there we started production. This is my waste bin. If we start to look into waste bin, the value has already left the stuff. If you're able to pick it up here, this is where we have the first product produced. And I've worn this jacket. I'm a little bit tired of it. I'm going to toss it away, sort of. The best way to go forward is just to offer this to the market. Direct reuse of the same product, highest value. There's a lot of work been put into making this jacket. So why not putting into direct reuse by someone else? I think that's the most logical way to go. Now we focus on the waste bin, because then we don't have to talk to me. And I seriously have the idea that we can have a revenue model on the waste bin and not on me giving the jacket to you. So politically this is also covered. So this is the transition we emphasize, but it's not unfolding. Policy is changing, and policy means, in this case, not Dutch policy, this is European policy. The EU is actually picking up this glove, seeing that we need to change something. I'm going to add to you one elephant in the room. I'm not quite sure the premise of policy is the right one, because this is not about preservation of the planet or preservation of materials. No, this is about maintaining the strategic position of the European Union within the global economy. Not quite sure whether this is the narrative that we should follow. I think we need to go back to the Club of Rome, the limits to growth. We have an economic system, we need to fulfill needs of people, but if we do it in the way we do it now, we will run out of materials in 2050, 2030, well, we know the list, right? It showed for every crucial material that was used in the economic system at that time and day when we would run out. Policy is changing, that I'm very happy about. So we started somewhere in the recovery of raw materials. This is, since the 1970s, we have policy in place, which was even made by a Dutchman. The ladder van Lansing was one of the first tools to qualify waste streams. And this was adopted by the European Union. Well, that inspired a lot of things in there, and then now we have the extended producer responsibility, which just means if you produce something, then you're responsible to clean up your shit. We had a whole talk about shit yesterday, so I'm very comfortable using that word. So if you put something on the European market, at a certain point in time, it will become waste. It will be in the bin there. And now you, manufacturer, you need to start collecting the waste and cleaning it up. It's a nice step forward, right? So whatever you put in the market, this was never the case. This is where economists had this very nice thing which was called social costs. If we, private company, put something on the market, the revenue is ours, and whatever ends up in the bin is your cost, the public cost. Europe is now telling us, no, this is your private cost. So it's a change of heart. It's a very good step forward. This is just looking at the end of pipe. What we also see in policy is something which is still in the design stage, but we do see some ideas there, which is called product ownership. This is under the Sustainable Product Initiative, where the responsibility is not just for cleaning up the waste, but it also goes upstream. Where do you source your materials? And one of the pieces of legislation that is very closely coming to that direction is the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, which was accepted in March this year, which basically means you're responsible for everything in your supply chain, globally. And you need to report on that. Something else, we also see something else, and this is something that we don't see really explicitly told in policy, but this is a consequence that we see. What we now have is an economic system that's very much organization-centric. The firm is key. If you do something in the realm of economic life, then the liabilities and the revenues and everything is onto the single firm. But firms never operate alone. They always operate in value chains or supply chains, or however you call them. So there's always a shared responsibility. And that is something that we think will be changing in the time, over time. So we might see systems of organizational forms. Maybe we go back to the guilds where individuals, well, they are affiliated to something we call collective, but they operate on themselves and they form interesting combinations in order to make products. Or we see the organization of sustainable value chains. So the value chain becomes an entity that has consciousness and that has takes responsibility, etc., etc. That might be. Yeah, I'm going to hurry up. Okay. In the meantime, we see a lot of hybrid organizations popping up. This is a very interesting thing, and this, I think, lies in the middle of where I do my research. But, and now I'm going to the but, and this is where economics kicks in. We try to build still these kind of things within a system which is completely broken. I think I'm going to resonate Christian's remark, and the economy is not value-free. No, we have an economy that is built on the philosophy of utilitarianism in the past, and then we got this nasty source of neoliberalism on top of that, neo-capitalism, all these kind of isms were put on top, which basically means we look at the economic system as markets, and we have only markets as the key resource, etc., etc. What we see is a great many of people picking up the glove. We see entrepreneurs with a very open heart and a very big conscience saying, we want to make the difference, we are going to do this. And they build it. They build businesses, they build business models that are green, that are circular, that care for the planet. And they are applauded because we now have the duurzame, what was it? Duurzame prijs, sustainable prizes that they get. So they're rewarded by all these things. At the end of the day, they do meet this guy, the accountant. And this is for all companies. The accountant just looks at the same endeavor with classical eyes and says, but you're not doing too well. You're not making a profit. You're not playing the rules of the game that we have. So this is where I kick in. Because entrepreneurs, either they want to do it and are taken down by their accountants, or the entrepreneurs are exploring the possibility of circularity, but they have already talked to their accountants, and then they put in all these kind of reservations. Yes, but we need to make sure that my accountant remains to be happy. Who's the boss? Okay, don't answer that question, please. So what is a value? What we oftentimes see, if we look at the SDGs, there is a very small set of values on the left-hand side, the 4 values that all are about economic growth and about consumption, etc., etc., that always outweigh the rest. And if we take the idea of circular economy seriously, and a circular economy is one of the tools that we have to move towards a sustainable society, then we need to do something about how we build this kind of balance. I'm still trying to puzzle with it, but I didn't have the time to make it graphically more appealing. I'm trying to do it. I identify, from my perspective, 5 problems, but if we do our best, I think we can up this to 10, but at least 5 problems that's around value and value retention, because I don't think this idea of value retention resonates well within the current economic system. Value is only visible in transactions. So if you own something, yes, it's on the balance sheet, but economically it's not worth anything until you put it on a trade. I think that's a problem, because if we take value retention seriously, we need to assign some sort of an intrinsic value to materials. We need to keep track of this stock of materials that we have. We don't have the tools for that yet. Competition is key, with a twist. Lisa also addressed competition yesterday. We have competition as a basic element in the economic fabric, right? But it's not competition in the original sense, where the competition is there to measure yourself against your peers and improve yourself to do better. Or against the clock if you do a running kind of game. What we do in the economic system is the following. We compete, and I make sure that you break your legs, I will tie your arms to your chest, and it will make sure you don't have any resources. That's what the competition is about. This is what Bas van Bavel addressed in his speech on Monday. Growth, I always think, and I'm looking at Matthias now, growth is not an outcome element of the system, but it's a parameter. Either politically, because it's just given by the politicians, we need to have growth. But also the economists treat growth as some sort of a stable thing. If you do the calculations well, you will see it's an outcome growth. Oh, but okay, that's a different. Exclusion of the not-haves, it's embedded in the system and it's enforced in reality. And there's fungibility, and this is a bit of a tricky thing. I explain it its shortest way. We can exchange one value for the other, and it doesn't really matter. There is no qualitative difference between having either natural values or social values or monetary values. We can just put everything and stockpile it on monetary values, and then in the future, we can interchange it back again. There's a whole school of thought called ecological economics that detests this idea. They didn't survive very well, because then the calculations are off. So the model is holy again. We are going back to recycle with your remark, Matthias. So my future labours. Last slide. My last 3 slides. The job now for the circular economy is going from these small initiatives to scale up, and we identified 3 barriers. I think the institutional framework I addressed, so the economic system that we have, the policies around that, they have the same kind of atmosphere that we already had. It maintains status quo. I think we need to work on that. Financing, I didn't address that, but that's one of the other things. And framing, also our own mindsets. And don't forget, from the 1950s, economics has been a course on elementary and secondary schools. Before that, we didn't have that. And it's, well, the neo-anything kind of economics that we are living. So we have already an economic perspective which is highly colored by the teaching that we've received. List of shortcomings, I'm ending here. My question for the coming years, and I grayed out the first one because I think we can just progress on the path that we have, but the question I have, how do we shape economics such that value retention actually gets a place? How do we get to a point that we can actually build a system in which we preserve our nice planet, the materials we have on that, and we make that a system that can fulfill our needs, not our desires or wishes, but our needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niels. Have I said too much? No, I haven't.
Sorry.
I haven't. Now I see some people desperately waving their hands. Yeah, but it's in the middle section. I can see some. I can't see who.
The gentleman in the middle already, and the lady in the back already raised their hands in the first round.
Okay, she did.
And the first one in front. Okay.
She was first. Okay, we have a. Okay. 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I'd like to address something that I believe is not an elephant in the room, but a herd of elephants in the room.
Okay.
Throughout every talk I've listened to, financing is an issue.
Yeah.
And yet, no one is looking or asking why. And the crucial thing is, there has been research that looked at societies in the past where they implemented debt with interest. And the research showed that in every case, as soon as they entered a slow economic growth, they ended up with unpayable debts.
Yep.
So we currently have a monetary system that cannot survive without economic growth. Both Keynesians say it's possible, and mathematically they are right, but the prerequisites are that banking and businesses work without profit accumulation, people do not save, and people start lending money without actually having a need for it. So why is this issue not addressed? Because there are solutions, actually. Because my research focuses on monetary systems, behavior, and the connection to circular economy. So there are solutions, but why is this this seems to be a blind spot.
Thank you. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. We bumped into this issue already in 2016, that financing was an issue. And long story short, what we saw is that it's mainly the risk profiling that provides us with this issue. And then the debt issue and the rent, etc. We've been looking into that. I'm still waiting for the final report on that. It's not my area of expertise, so I'm very keen on learning from you also what you have found. There have been examples, I think, in the past, and I'm not the past years, but really in history of this, what was this king that would call out all the debts resolved at the end of year if harvests were not enough to pay back. So there are ways to go about. We don't have that system. We have a system of punishment. We're very Calvinistic in that regard. If you are in debt, you need to suffer. I think that's the best way to put it. Yes, we need to look into this. And honestly, I don't have an answer. Best I can do.
Thank you.
I'll
come
That's an honest answer.
Yeah.
The lady in the back.
There's one in the back and then one in the front, yeah.
I think it's Brecht here.
Yeah. We'll start in front.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Niels. There's another elephant in the room, another blind spot, and it's not just because of your presentation, but just of being here for 3 days, and suddenly I had a aha moment. We keep talking about economy and all different models and supply chain and new policies, blah, blah, blah. Fantastic. So I suddenly had as well, is there a blind spot? Because economics is about supply and demand, and we're only talking about the supply side. So, we want, all marketing is focused on creating more demand. And so why aren't we focusing on the marketing of the benefits of buying less? So, why are the marketers not here in the room with us and promoting how fantastic it is to buy less? So just something to take with us into the sessions.
I'm in full agreement with you, and I'm very happy that you get to me at the end of my talk, because this is something I actually forgot to tell you. This is also part of the elephant in the room. The circular economy system, as I told you, is sold as a way to realize decoupling and to achieve green growth. In fact, the circular economy is a system that pushes us towards sufficiency, and you call it deconsumption. I think that's a very nice term, but yeah. At least a decline in consumption. We need to be much more thrifty and much more careful with what we desire and what we would like to consume. I'm absolutely with you on that. Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, my question is, so what you've been presenting, for some reason it looks like Avery Lovins and the Rocky Mountains Institutes in the 1990s. It's about how companies can improve their products in a way. But isn't it that we should stop looking at the companies as the focus of our attention, but we should move to people and to areas and the actual needs of those people in those areas, and then start to think, how can we provide for them?
I think you put your finger on the sore spot. What we build is an economic system which is way too big for single people to comprehend what's going on, let alone control. And if we are serious about achieving, we call it a circular economy, we call it a sustainable society, whatever name you call it, a society that lives within the limits that nature puts on us, or our planet puts on us, and are able to provide a social foundation that supports the community, then I think we need to look at the proper scale. I didn't address it in my talk. I do have that in other writings, but scale is going to be an important one, and I think regional scale is a very sensible way to go forth. But now we are combining things. We are combining the necessity of Lisa saying we need to look into democratizing our economic system. And we need to find scale, and we need to look into issues that Matthias touched upon. I need to puzzle on this.
I guess that it would change looking at the politics, that I cannot imagine how we can get politics to plead for this. So we might have to really look at the regions and people and start there, because there are the needs.
I agree with you. I think a good place to start is to get rid of the privileged position of the corporations. Get them away again from having this status of rights persons in the laws. That would help. Yes, Matthias wants to take it up. Yeah.
Can you turn? Yeah. I do not entirely agree with the politics, because just as a small comment, when we started this post-growth movement, which is now less than 2 years ago, no single political party in the Netherlands was willing to adopt this paradigm in their programs, election programs whatsoever. And then we started advising various political parties pro bono. And there are now 4 political parties. We were allowed also to write on the election programs. There are now 4 political parties that says, yes, we want to do something with post-growth. Some still call it selective growth, so they're still on their way to post-growth. But there's definitely a very strong development there. And there's a 5th party, which is one of the largest parties in the Netherlands. And they also say, well, they haven't written it down yet in their election programs, but they say, yes, we want to do something with this. And we have talked many times to members of parliament from our foundation, and we go there more than once a month. And there are so many politicians, they say, yes, you are right, we want to do it. Our main problem is that the people who vote for us, they also need to want it. So their education is needed. So I have much more faith, not in all political parties, but in many political parties.
Which one should we vote tomorrow?
I'm not going to give advice on that. No,
Christian Union. Yeah, that's one of the 4.
That's one of the 4, true. Yeah. So the 4 political parties that say yes, they already adopted in the program is the Christian Union, inderdaad, the Christian Democrats, Socialist Party, and the Animal Rights Party. And then there is a 5th, a somewhat larger party, and they are this close.
I don't know what to vote for coming Thursday.
I'm sorry,
No advice,
but I'm
no
not that optimistic. I work in the agricultural field. The moment you get it to the parties, then the lobbyists come in, and after a little while, I'm sure they'll get it out of the program. So I really think we need to work on a different level.
Yeah. No, well, thank you, Brechtje, for your comment.